Hey guys, it's Adam here. Um, this is week 9. We're talking about proposal writing and report writing, but what's more important is week 9 means that we're on the downhill side of the semester. We crossed over and we finished one half of it already. And the even better news is that we get like 4 holidays in November, so it's all downhill from here. So, starting this week, we're going to talk about proposals and report writing. I think you're going to focus mainly on proposals this week because you have a research proposal that's due, I think, Sunday or Monday next week. So that's probably going to be your main focus. So with me, we're going to do like a little exercise at the end of this on report writing, and we'll talk about that Friday. So you'll have plenty of time to watch this video, do your reading, and then do that assignment. I'll talk about it a little more at the end. For now, let's first look at what proposals are. And so we're going over 2 chapters this week. Usually we do one, so it's 2 shorter chapters. We're going to squeeze them both into this week. The first one is proposals, and that's, I think, chapter 12 for you guys. And so the first thing we got to ask, of course, is what is a proposal? So basically, a proposal is an idea put forward that offers solutions to some problem that's there. I've actually been doing a bunch of proposals this week. If you're trying to sell something to someone, like a piece of software or anything, you usually will write up a proposal, and a lot of times that's based on how much money that someone wants to spend, and then they can just accept it or deny it. In this case, probably for the next few years for you guys, a proposal will mean it's something that you're bringing up and an idea that you're putting forward and that you have a solution for. You have a good idea and you have a solution and you're going to put it down on paper. And it could be anywhere from a paragraph to, a long proposal, and it really all depends on what the subject is. So a lot of this is going to look a little bit familiar because a proposal is basically an argument. It's similar to developing a thesis like we've been doing for multiple different types of essays or reports or papers that we've been writing over the last few weeks. So a proposal is just a different version of that. So we're going to have a lot of the same processes, like the creative process and the key elements of the paper and all that. So like I said, a lot of these are going to look pretty similar to what we've seen before. The key elements of a proposal, we're going to start with a well-defined problem. Again, you want it to be something that's going to have some good meaning to it that you're proposing. And hopefully when you do write a proposal, you'll have as much autonomy like you do in this class to pick whatever subject that you want to write about. That's not always going to be the case, especially if you're writing a proposal for your job someday. You'll have something very specific. But you do want it to be very well defined. You don't want it to be going off on tangents or having like a huge broad area of what you're proposing. The other main thing that you're going to need is, once you define your problem, is to have a solution to that problem. So the example in the book was like, if you're talking about the university using too much paper, you'd want to have a solution to that, or a solution that you can present that fixes that problem. A convincing argument for your proposed solution is also going to be very important. So if you're coming up with a solution that doesn't really work or may not really be a good way to solve the problem, then probably your paper is not going to be very well defined, because you don't really have a good solution to that problem. The next thing is a response to questions readers may have. And this goes back to like the argumentative writing that we were talking about earlier. You have to kind of anticipate what people are going to argue about, or any reasons that they could have that your proposal may not work, and anticipate that and be ready and probably write down some of those within your paper so that you can counter that. Next would be a call to action. This depends on what type of report you're doing, but it's probably your proposal will probably end with some kind of action being done. So whether that's like in the example in the book, trying to recycle more, or If it's your proposal to do a job for someone for a certain amount of money, that's your action at the end. And then, of course, the appropriate tone is necessary, just mainly meaning being professional, or what type of tone you want to take, or what way you want to present this paper. So, and then, like I said, it could be something like just very broad, something you do for a job that's only one page long that says how much money this costs for this proposal. Or if you're writing a paper for a proposal at school, it may only be a few pages. And if it's something very broad and you're working, say, in politics or something like that, where you're proposing something, some very large thing in government, that could be it could be thousands of pages. So proposals can vary. And I don't think you'll be writing any. Oh yeah, no, you're doing proposals this week. You won't be writing any report writing, I don't think, but we're going to talk about that later anyway. But yeah, you're working on a proposal this week. I hope that goes well. Make sure you let us know if you have any questions about that as we move forward. So some of the tips we could offer you guys as far as writing your proposal is choosing a good topic. I didn't get to read your assignment, but I think you get to choose what you want to write your proposal on. And then some of the methods for coming up with good subjects or good things to write about, and then a way to like kind of work with that, are similar to what we've worked with before. So you'll see a lot of the same generating ideas for your text. So here's a couple of tips that we'll go over. First thing is to, if you have the option to do it, you can look at several possible solutions to the problem. So hopefully you can come up with something that's fun to write about, and then you have multiple different ways of fixing or proposing a fix for that problem. So, and that's not always the case. Sometimes it's just one thing, one fix, and that's what you're stuck with writing about. But hopefully you have an option for multiple ones. The next thing you'll do is decide on the most desirable solutions. So you, like I said, you may have 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe many different solutions to the problem, but there's probably going to be one that's the main one, that's the most efficient or the most applicable, something that's going to work the best to fix that problem. And that's probably what you should focus on in your paper. After that, you want to think about why your solution is the best one. There could be other people out there with other proposals or different ideas. And you want to kind of like write down why yours is the best one. That will be part of your paper and part of how you're coming up with ideas. It could be something that's already out there and someone has a proposal to a problem that people have been using for years and years, and you have a better one. So that could be another type of proposal you have to write, improving on someone else's. Okay, and then I like these at the end of the book, or at the end of each chapter. It kind of walks you through kind of the thought process, but I think this kind of way, like in order like this, it may not help you, but I like these types of things, like looking at a chart like this. So, and these are just the ways to organize a proposal. And they look kind of, especially for the next chapter, they look kind of confusing at first, but if you kind of walk through them slowly, it gives you a good way to organize how you're writing your paper, because all of them are kind of different. So for a proposal, the first thing we'll do is introduce and explain the problem. So you want to make sure that you start off by explaining very well what the actual problem is that you're going to propose a solution to. So it's kind of like just like literary analysis and narrative writing. Before you actually just dive into writing your paper, you need to set it up and have an introduction so that whoever's reading your paper is very clear on what the problem is. Next, we'll identify possible solutions and then figure out what are good reasons for the solutions, and then what are some bad reasons for those solutions. And then you can kind of walk through those however you need to, depending on what your subject is. How that's ordered will depend on you. And then next, you're going to propose a solution and say why you think this is your best reason for a solution for this problem. And then finally, a call for action. So you're going to say what the action is that will fix the problem. And so it's possible that you use exactly these 4 steps, and it could be that each of those steps is 4 different paragraphs, or an introduction and a body of 3 paragraphs, and your call to action is a conclusion. But again, it could be different for whatever you're writing about or how long your paper is supposed to be. The next one is for a single solution. So this would be if you just have not multiple different ones like we looked at earlier. So introducing and explaining the problem again, explain the proposed solution. So you're starting kind of with the solution because you know that's a good one and you know that's going to fix the problem. And then give reasons why it is the best solution. So basically you're going to describe it and define what your solution to the problem is. And be ready for or already address what some people may think the problem with that is. You can kind of anticipate what someone's argument for something would be. And then finally, again, your call to action and maybe reiterating your proposal in the conclusion. Okay, we're going to move on to reports. This was in chapter 9, so we're kind of going back a little ways on this one. So what is a report now that we've moved on from proposals? We're talking about a different type of paper, which is mainly going to address something. So let's first of all go over some of these issues right here. Not issues, but kind of definitions of what a report is. So a proposal, we were trying to change someone's mind and propose a solution on how they're going to fix a problem. So that was more of an argument. With a report, it's a little easier because you're basically just describing something that you've been requested to describe. So what is a report officially? It's a tightly focused topic. That's the first thing. Something very broad. For example, I was trying to find it so I could put the picture on here for you guys. The first report I ever did, I think, was in 2nd or 3rd grade. And I made it out of construction paper, and it was on Palau. And it had a picture of, the flag with the yellow and the blue on the front, and it said Palau. And I listed like 3 or 4 exports and imports that happen in that country, and some of the things I liked about living there. And it was very childish. It was obviously a kid made it, but still that falls into the category of a report. A lot of times in elementary school, you'll be given something very broad like a country, like do a report on Germany. And you look up a bunch of information, but still it's very straightforward. It's a lot easier to do because you don't really have to come up with your own solution or your own problem for the paper. It's usually pretty straightforward. So something like a country like Palau or Germany or Hawaii, even a state, that's not really a tightly focused topic. You're better off, if you have the opportunity to, is to focus on something very focused. Like instead of writing about biology or narrowing that down even to trees and plants, you could narrow that down to the ohia tree. So you want to try and keep it as focused as much as possible. It's also more fun that way, especially if it's something you're interested in. The next thing is that you want to have a very accurate and well-researched information. So because you're just you're putting information that's already there together, and you're kind of like making a summary of what you're doing your report on. So you're just basically collecting information that's already there, or that maybe you have to go out and collect, and then put it together into one document or one paper. I wanted to talk about field research really quick. There's a difference between sitting in the library. Well, I'm sure you guys know this. There's a difference between sitting in the library and looking through books and magazines and Googling all kinds of things, or looking at databases on papers and things, as opposed to actually going out and doing field research. I'm not sure if any of you guys have ever had a chance to do this, but it can be a lot of fun depending on what you're doing your field research on. But the thing to keep in mind if you're doing your own research, which is drawing information that's not already somewhere, like in a library, you need to make sure you're keeping very good track of that. Then also there's the various writing strategies for writing reports. So again, if you're writing a technical report, you could be writing a report on a certain type of computer or a processor, or you could be writing a report on a type of bird that's endangered in Hawaii or somewhere else. Depending on what you're writing about, you're going to have a very different writing strategy and writing style. Want to make sure that we have clear definitions. Everything that we're defining obviously needs to be very clear. You're the expert again when you're writing this report, so you want to make sure that you're writing so that everything is defined for the reader who may not know as much as you do about the subject. And then finally, the appropriate design. So one thing we're looking at is if you're doing something with a lot of numbers, or if you did field research and you collected a lot of information from, say, a bunch of different people in Hilo, say you walked through a neighborhood and went and asked questions, it might be better visualized for the reader in the form of a chart or something like that. Just keep in mind to think about different ways that if you were reading your own report and you didn't know anything about it, would there be any easier ways to show what you're trying to describe? And pictures work too sometimes if your reader may not be clear on what something is. Okay, and some more tips. Again, these are going to be kind of similar to the other ones that we've talked about already. Choosing a topic, hopefully you get to do that. It's so much more fun writing papers when you're writing something about something of a topic that you like or that you're interested, and it's definitely easier if it's a topic that you know something about already. If you have to go into it just totally blind, some of the same general generating ideas or methods for generating ideas, again, are free writing, looping, or clustering. And I know we talked about free writing already. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to talk about looping or clustering. But looping is similar to free writing. Free writing, again, is where you give yourself 5 minutes and you just make sure your pen is moving. You just bring in ideas no matter what. You never stop. Looping is kind of the same idea, but you stop after a certain amount of time and you look at what was important in what you wrote over that last 5 minutes, write those main ideas down, and then start free writing again, but only on that new topic that you pulled out of your gibberish that was probably the beginning. And then you can do that again. You can pull the good information out of that and write about that. And if you do that a couple of times, you might be able to pull out of all the craziness in your brain, all these different ideas that are flying all over the place. You can narrow it down to something that might make a little more sense for the report that you're writing. And then finally, clustering is a way of just putting things into different categories and looking at them. Producing a tentative thesis. Okay, so this is something that'll probably help you out when you're starting to write your report. You come up with an idea, but your thesis, of course, can change during your writing process. So don't feel like you can't update what your main thesis idea is. And again, with report writing, it's probably going to be pretty straightforward for you. You aren't going to have to be adjusting a lot like you do in a proposal or in something where you have to come up with your own thesis. And finally, do any necessary research. So you're going to have, for a report, I'm sure going to have to be doing research unless you have a lot of the information in your own brain on what you're writing about. That's the whole idea of a report, is taking pulling from tons of information and then turning that into something that's a summary or something that you can report on this very specific thing. So I've always had fun doing reports because I'm worse with the creativeness. If you have to come up with your own idea, if you're given a report, you can do it. Usually you're given something very, very straightforward. And then again, both of these are out of the book. I think it was chapter,